AITA for borrowing some money from my wife's savings account? My wife and I have joined finances, but she has a savings account her grandpa set up for her before he passed. It's around $40K in savings. We both work IT jobs and get paid fairly well. I want to note that we do not live in America, so wages differ. She's stated to me that that money are for either an emergency or in case we plan on buying our own house. She said that in case I need money for an emergency I'm allowed to use. I also have access to the account, but so far I didn't use anything. 2 months ago my sister asked me to lend her $5K because she wanted to pay for her wedding dress, but her card had expired and kept declining. I lent her $5K, but since I didn't have the full amount of my own paycheck, I borrowed money from my wife's savings. My sister said she'd pay me back once her new card was ready, which would take less than 2 days. I didn't tell my wife this because I'd replace the money in 2 days. It's been 2 months now and my sister is putting off on giving back the money she borrowed. She keeps finding excuses on why she couldn't give it back every time. My wife hasn't checked the savings account in ages, but what if she happens to check it and she figures out $5K is missing? My best friend says I am honest with her and I should accept the consequences of my own actions for not notifying my wife and not letting her know about the money missing. AITA? I feel very guilty for this and for trusting my sister. YTA. You need to tell your wife and start repaying the amount you took immediately. You need to start getting your sister to repay you small amounts, if possible. And now you need to realize that your sister is tapped out and you should never lend her money again. YTA. A wedding dress is not an emergency. You should have discussed this with your wife prior to agreeing to lend the money to your sister. Come clean with your wife before she finds out on her own, and you should start paying the money back from your salary. YTA. Not only is paying for a wedding dress not an emergency, you didn't even give your wife the chance to decide if that money should be used in this way. This was not a situation where you didn't have the time to talk to her first before lending the money. Also, never lend money you expect back, especially from family. Add that you've continued to hide it for months. I'd remove your access to that account immediately. You've shown that you can't be trusted. YTA. That wasn't an emergency. Your sister is clearly not paying you back. You could have literally asked if your wife was okay with such a large sum and gone from there. It's not borrowing if you didn't ask. You knew it was wrong because you hide it and are only panicking now because you know you can't get the money back. Apologize to your wife. Don't be surprised if she removes your access because you clearly cannot be trusted. YTA 1,000 times over. 1. You never steal from your spouse. I don't care if your sister's house had burnt down. You fucking ask your life partner before you do anything like giving away huge sums of money to family. 2. If she didn't have the $5K before, what makes you think she'll have it to pay you back? Your sister not being able to afford her wedding dress is not an emergency. You were scammed. Her bank would have sent her new debit card the beginning of the month it expires, not wait to send one after it expired. You're not getting that money back. And you will probably never get your wife's trust back either. YTA. YTA. First of all, this wasn't an emergency. Second of all, you need to replace that money with $5K of your own. I would replace it and then tell your wife what happened. Just be honest and say you made a bad judgment about what constitutes an emergency and you repaid her with your own money and you're sorry. YTA. You didn't tell your wife you were borrowing the money. Strike 1. You aren't paying back the money from your own paycheck to make up the difference because your sister is a flaky asshole. Strike 2. Here's what you need to do. Tell your wife. Because you were being dishonest if she finds out on her own. How do you think that's going to go? Pay back out of your own money what your sister owes. That's just basic fairness because you borrowed the money secretly for your sister because you didn't have the cash on hand. And then do what you gotta do to recover your money from your sister. YTA. Your best friend is completely correct. You basically robbed your wife to buy your sister wedding dress and now you're between a rock and a hard place. Pay your wife back out of your savings and hound your sister in your own time. YTA. This is clear cut. Why are you hiding things from your wife? There's actually no conflict here because who else could be the asshole? YTA. Your sister's wedding dress is not an emergency. You stole from your wife and your sister has no intention of paying you back. Better find a way to get that money back to your wife. YTA. A wedding dress is neither an emergency or a house. You also took it without telling her. It's basically stealing. You're probably not going to see that money from your sister. Looks like you might have made a $5,000 mistake. You are 100% ta and a fool as well. Good luck ever getting that money back from your sister. YTA. A wedding dress isn't an emergency at all. If she couldn't afford her dress, she needed to pick a different one. $5,000 on a dress you wear for 12 hours at most is batshit anyway if you can't readily afford it. Let your wife know you fucked up and will be repaying the amount from your own salary. Then you can take your sister to small claims court for lying and stealing. Don't mix money with friends and family. YTA. You used her inheritance for your sister's wedding, which isn't an emergency. You stole money from your wife when you used it for something it wasn't intended for. YTA. You should have asked your wife. It's her money. It's always risky to loan anyone money for exactly what happened with your sister not paying. You stole from your wife. You'll have to live with the consequences. YTA. It was your wife's money, not yours. You always need to consult about that. If you couldn't give the full money for a wedding dress on your own, you should have done partial. This is not fair to your wife. YTA. It was not your money to loan out and for something that wasn't an emergency. You should have talked to your wife before stealing. Yes, stealing the money. You need to tell your wife what you did before she sees it and face the consequences. You should not have access to that account ever again. Do you have your own checking account separate from your joint account? You should pay back the stolen money from that account. YTA. For many reasons. First and foremost, you should never have used the savings account money to lend to your sister. It was not an emergency. And as a side note, you should never lend money to family. As you can see now, she is making excuses and you are likely not going to see that money again. Second, you should have told your wife from the beginning. So now, what do you? Come clean to your wife and let her know you made a huge mistake of trusting your sister, but that's on you and you will be replacing the money to that account with your money. That is not normally put into joint finance. Also put the heat on your sister for repayment by a certain date. Finally, it is up to you if you want to take legal action on your sister if she fails to pay. YTA. The agreement you had with your wife was that money are for either an emergency or in case we plan on buying our own house. She said that in case I need money for an emergency I'm allowed to use. Your sister's wedding dress is neither a house nor an emergency. It doesn't matter that your sister was apparently going to pay you back in 2 days. You took the money from your wife and now she's down $5,000 for a wedding dress your sister couldn't afford. What if she happens to check it and she figures out $5,000 is missing? Yeah, what does happen? You got yourself into this mess without thinking of the consequence and now you need to own up to what happened and replace the 5 kelvins. Get your sister on a payment plan to pay you back and never lend her money again.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. AmITheAsshole is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.